What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Destination the Show. Get it together, Jeremy. It is episode 78 on Wednesday, May 5th, 2025. My name is Jamie Cameron, joined as always by Jeremy Nygaard. What's going on, dude? Dude, you look like you've been spending some time outside. Am I off base?
Not on purpose. No, I guess we just started with my confusion because you're not logged in. Theo is, I'm not pushing the right buttons or pushing buttons.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. Otherwise, aside from the debacle at the Target Center last night, things are good. I was at, the joke was that, like when I was listening to the radio, that the important game was at the Target Center. Nobody cared about what was going on at Target Field. Turns out the Twins are maybe okay, and the Wolves were awful.
The Wolves were awful, but it's all uphill from here. You got to feel good about their chances.
I just got to say, for listener clarity, I was gone the last 2 weeks, so you guys had a little more responsibilities and had to fill in. So that's probably why Jeremy was like, oh, my God, why am I supposed to hit a button?
Right.
What's up?
That's exactly what it was. So
you got to feel good about their chances with Steph out, reevaluated in a week, I think is what I read. That's going to have him missing games 2, 3, maybe 4 as well. You still have to feel good about the Wolves' chances. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, they beat a not very good Lakers team in game 5 by not playing very well.
Yep.
The X factor is Jimmy Butler isn't going to feel okay losing to the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
And he's led, teams that had other decent pieces to the finals, obviously. But, it felt weird last night. They haven't shot the ball real well. And the Warriors just made shots. And ultimately, even when I announce basketball games, I'm like, not to oversimplify the sport, but the team that makes shots is going to be the team that wins tomorrow.
Sure.
And so when the Wolves don't make a 3 in the first half and Ant does nothing, but yeah, I mean, not having the best player on the opponent's team makes it a little bit better. The Wolves have also found ways to lose to teams this year without their best players playing. So
this is true.
They'll have to answer some questions, and there obviously are going to be those, but it does help. It should help for tomorrow night anyway that Curry's not playing.
This is true. We will, when we come back together, we'll be through 4 games of the series at least. So
yeah, next Wednesday would work out to be game 5, I think.
Okay.
That would be the next home game. So we might have to we'd have to look at our next week's schedule if the Wolves can manage to get a win.
Well, we'll check back on this series in at least a week. Quick housekeeping before we jump into all of the baseball things. You can support the show by liking and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform of choice. You can find us on YouTube at Destination the Show. If you want to send us questions, the Twitter handle is at DTS_pod1. You can find us on Blue Sky at Destination the Show or email destinationtheshow@gmail.com. Couple of things, Jeremy, to hit on before we talk about movers and shakers in the Minnesota Twins farm system, which is our topic for today. Here's something I wanted to touch base with you on. The Brewers finalize the Quinn Priester trade to the Red Sox, which now we can fully recap as the number 33 overall pick in the 2025 draft, Yoferi Rodriguez, and the player to be named later was a right-handed pitcher named John Holibetz, who was actually the Brewers' 5th round pick in the 2024 draft. And I want to quickly read off his numbers so far. So he was a right-handed pitcher out of Old Dominion. Started the year in A-ball, 24 innings pitched. Let's see here. 24 innings pitched, 244 FIP, striking out 31.3% of hitters, walking just 5.1% of hitters. Stuff looking pretty good overall. I know there were some folks, including friend of the show, Spencer Michaelis, who liked Holibetz quite a bit for the Brewers, who's much more plugged into their system than we are. But, dude, I got to say, this trade for Priester just looks like it's going from bad to worse, man.
Yeah. I think, we talked about it originally. We didn't like it. When we talked about it a little bit more, we didn't like it. Priester's made 5 starts so far for the Brewers. Got a win in his second start where he actually held the Tigers scoreless over 5 innings. In his last 2 starts, 5 earned runs in 5 innings, 8 hits, and a week ago had an opener and then came in and gave up 7 earned runs in 4 1/3. He did have 13 swinging strikes, which is at least something positive, right? But yeah, he hasn't struck out more than 4 in a game, gave up 2 home runs. It was a desperate move at a desperate time, maybe, or what felt like a desperate time. And if this name, not that it's like a household name, right? If you're a Brewers fan, you've maybe heard of it if you follow the draft. But any name that appears somewhat valuable just makes us look
worse and worse. Yeah. Here's my question for you quickly on this before we move on. I've seen the argument from folks on social media, on Twitter, of we have to give the Brewers time to do their work with Priester. There's clearly things they like about his profile. We know that from many, many conversations we've had. We trust the Brewers' pitching development, right, to unravel some of the challenges and kind of get him in good working order. But here's my counterpoint. So his numbers with Milwaukee so far, he's striking out just over 15% of hitters. That's unmanageably bad. He's walking close to 15% of hitters. His K minus ball on base percentage is 0.9%. He has a 535 FIP. So we can say we need to give the Brewers some time, but he was traded for to give them a boost now, to help their major league team now to be part of the major league roster. So maybe it's dramatic, and I'm not trying to be hot takey, but this trade just seems bad, and it doesn't seem like it's getting better to me anytime soon.
Yeah, I would agree with that one completely.
Okay, one more thing I wanted to touch base with you on, because I was writing a bunch of draft primers for various sites in the past week, and there is one major change ahead of the 2025 cycle, Jeremy, that I want to get your take on, because you're a little bit more of a draft history buff than I am. And you, I think, have been covering the draft more through more kind of iterations and changes. The big change ahead of 2025 is the draft is transitioning from a 3-day event to a 2-day event. So what it's going to look like now is all of the picks through the end of round 3 are going to be on day 1. That's going to take us through around 100 picks instead of last year, what was around 75 picks on day 1. And then you've got rounds 4 through 20 on day 2 of the draft. And a couple of folks have asked me, so I was curious for your take on this. What do you think the major impact of that shift is for teams in the draft, kind of transitioning from a 3-day deal to a 2-day event? Do you think that makes it more challenging? What do you think teams are going to be dealing with or kind of marinating on as they're approaching July this year with a different format?
Yeah, so I mean, it seems crazy when you're like, oh, so now they're, instead of doing 2 rounds and 8 rounds and 10 rounds, they're going to do 3 rounds and then 17 rounds. And it's like, how in the world are you going to do 17 rounds in a day? But not that long ago, they did rounds 21 through 40 in one day. And it was a long day. And I would guess that this is probably the preference. And I could be way off, but I just feel like for people in the draft room, when you're doing it, to then take a break. And it's not. I feel like it would maybe be different if you could trade picks and look at your board. How do we feel? But it's the biggest change probably is like trying to re-engage with the guys that's bonus numbers higher, and then trying to figure out if that's someone that you could pick on day 3. And now it's going to be like the middle of day 2. However, the counterpoint would be, those are the guys that are typically falling out of the top 3 rounds.
Yep.
So if you're going to engage with them in between day 1 and day 2 as a possible day 2 pick, It's just when do you want to take them on day 2? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I don't think it'll be. It's not like it's going to be this huge dramatic change, because that change happened when they went from 40 rounds to 20, and also they've had practice in firing off picks. I actually, as a fan of the draft, will prefer this 2-day setting.
I'll let you know after we're done like live streaming on day 2, depending on the level of tiredness, how I feel about it.
Well, it'll be tiring, but it's going to be tiring regardless.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, let's dig into our main topic for the day, just to set the scene for the next couple of weeks here. We are about to make kind of a hard launch into the draft cycle and draft season here. We put an ask out there recently of whether folks would be interested in us doing a mock draft. That was a resounding yes for people. So we are going to do a mock draft next week. What we wanted to do before then is dig into the Twins farm system a little bit and identify some guys who are off to bright starts, and maybe some other guys who have question marks about their opening month and a half of the 2025 season. And for this, what we're going to do is we're each going to pick 1 or 2 guys at each level who are off to a good start, a couple who are maybe struggling a little bit more, who we have questions around. And for the most part, we're picking names off the beaten path a little bit, right? So we're generally staying away from top prospects, guys that we've talked about a lot on the show. That's not to diminish their performance or the question marks around them, but we want to spread their love around the system a little bit. So we're going to start with the bottom of the system and work our way up. We'll start at single A, Fort Myers. Jeremy, guys who you have been impressed with in the opening 6 weeks of the season, and why?
Yeah, so I think for me it was maybe more like you said, surprised. And I know one name that we both will agree on is Jay Thomason, who was a later pick last year out of the Air Force, and has just played well. Right? It statistically, it doesn't appear that he belongs at that level anymore.
Yep.
And I don't know, as a 23-year-old at that level, he's done everything he needs to. So his OPS right now is north of 1,000. He's got 6 home runs, and is getting on base over 44% of the time. Just someone that it's like you're not going to look at a player like that with that resume and say, oh man, this is a prospect to watch. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely someone that it's like he's done everything he's asked at the level that he's currently at.
Yep.
And has deserved a promotion. That's where guys like Peyton Eels all of a sudden become a bigger deal, because he does it at multiple levels at a time. So the quicker you do that at the level that you're at, right, the quicker you earn a promotion, the quicker you have that opportunity to move up. So just a name that kind of stuck out as being the most deserving of someone that probably of a promotion at this point, this early in the season. The other name, and it's a name that I've talked about, and so probably why I went this direction, just because I don't know, again, what's going to happen with a 17th round pick from the prior year. Lefty Cade Bragg has been only 9 appearances, 12 innings. He's just struck out 18, right? Yep. Walked 4. I don't have the under the hood numbers to know exactly what it looks like. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But just someone that at 23 has done what he can at this level. Only had 8 innings pitched last year. Has given up more hits, 4 earned runs, but just certainly someone to keep an eye on, because at this level, I would say 80% of these guys probably won't amount to big league players. But if you can find like kind of one diamond in the rough, I think that's a big deal. So those are just 2 names that stood out to me with the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles.
I saw you itching to say Miracle then, and I just wanted you to lean into it.
I really wanted to. I was just not going to say what they're called. That might be the first time I've ever actually spoke those words on this podcast.
Yeah, I love those are great picks. And Bragg is an interesting one. You know, it's not that common, I think, that we see guys deployed solely as relievers starting straight away at low A. But he has a 306 xFIP so far this season and a really interesting like east-west type of profile. And he's like limiting contact altogether. And then Thomason, as you mentioned, 183 WRC plus so far. He is in need of a sterner test. One more guy I'll throw into the mix from high A before we move on to our question mark guys. And there's at low A. And there's so many guys we could highlight here. But I can't not mention Dylan Quested. The 2024 draft class, 2023 draft class of the Minnesota Twins is a fascinating one. You had Jenkins, Charlie Soto, Luke Keeschel, Brandon Winokur, of course. Dylan Quested was the Twins, I want to say 4th round pick, a prep righty out of Wisconsin who was committed to Arkansas. The only reason I bring that up is that's usually a really strong program for developing pitchers. He struggled mightily in the complex league in 2024 in his age 19 season, 28 innings in the complex league. He walked close to 20% of guys, did show some swing and miss, but was pretty rough. This year at low A, he looks like a completely different pitcher, as I just lost my numbers on him. 1 second. That's never what you want to hear, is someone's a completely different pitcher and then you lose all of the stats that you had in front of you. So, yeah, it looks like a completely different guy, and it's a small sample, only 16 innings pitched so far, but it's a 280 FIP. He's striking out 39% of guys. The walk rate has gone from 19.2% down to 10.2%. Fastball sitting in the mid-90s, and I think that's much more so what the Twins hoped for and expected when they signed Quested, who they signed for about $500,000 to get him away from his college commitment, I think. And I think maybe a good example of that, like, we got to be patient with some guys. Some guys get off to a rocky start and then they eventually start to figure things out. So anything extra on Quested, Jeremy? What are your thoughts on his start at Fort Myers?
You know, when he came up, when he made his first appearance and did well, that was nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to struggle and then have to follow that along for a while. So just the fact that he bounced back, but again, anything on a short year in your draft season, I don't put a lot of stock in. So, you know, as a Wisconsin kid, I'm obviously hoping that he performs well. So, like to see it, and hopefully it continues.
Yep. My question mark at the low A level at the moment is Byron Churio. He's an interesting guy. So he was acquired as kind of the throw-in tiebreaker piece in the Luis Ariz for Pablo Lopez kind of challenge trade the Twins and the Marlins made a couple of years ago. And even at that time, he was named as a little bit of a sneaky, kind of under the radar, might be sneaky good prospect. He's, you know, top 30 in several Twins lists. He is 19, so still very young, repeating low A. And I'm just not really sure exactly what to make of his performance, because combined, he's walking and striking out 45% of the time. His walk rate's close to 24%, which is absurd. His strikeout rate's very manageable at 22%. But he's also not hitting that well. He's really reliant on that walk rate. It's looking much better this time around in a second go around at Fort Myers. It was a 62 WRC plus at that level in 2024. He's doubled that, and he's up to 124 so far in 2025. And it's less of a question and more of a, like, I want to see that for another couple of months before feeling confident that maybe he gets a shot at Cedar Rapids, and also acknowledging that he's still super young. This is his age 20 season. So by no means a huge cause for concern that he's repeating the level. How about you for guys who you have questions on?
So before I get to mine, I found your choice intriguing because he was actually on my list of guys that surprised from the perspective of he's drawn 27 walks so far, right? Last year he drew on the season 29 walks, so we've got improvement there. Last year he struck out 104 times. So he had his DSL league where he walked 25 times, struck out 27. I like when guys are close, right? The next year in his move stateside, 20 walks, 19 strikeouts. And then last year it was like 4-1 strikeouts to walks, which was concerning to me.
Mm-hmm.
He now has come back. He hasn't hit for much power. He only had 3 home runs before that anyway, right?
Yep.
So he is reliant on that, but that's not something that you can teach. So if he can even maintain that sort of balance, that I think projects well to the future. Again, your argument is he's very young, and that's why I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Don't love focusing on the super young guys that are maybe repeating at this level because they are young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, my choice was equally young player Jose Rodriguez, who has been awful, and so that to me is problematic. In his repeat edition of the low A Florida Complex League, he's batting 130, getting on base 22.9% of the time, slugging 283 for an OPS of 511, 11 walks, 33 strikeouts, has 3 home runs. Power's something that he's supposed to have. 0 stolen bases, just really hasn't done much of anything in 105 at bats, has 12 hits. 7 of those have been extra base hits. You talk about Churio being in top 30s. Rodriguez was someone that, look, depending on the list, you maybe saw in the top dozen or around that, at least coming into last year, and he wasn't great. Over the course of his whole season last year, had a 554 OPS.
Yeah,
and
tough.
So what really are we doing here? Like, he was a bigger bonus guy. Is like, how many years? What does he get next year? Does he get the courtesy promotion to Cedar Rapids, and then that's the end of his career with the Twins? Like that, we're getting to the point where he's had 712 plate appearances, and his career OPS is 726. Like, this is concerning. Obviously, it's early in the season. He could turn it around and have a great year, and I could be laughed at for making this comment. But at this point, like, after almost 300 plate appearances at low A, he's batting in the 150s. Like, yikes.
That's worrying for sure. Okay, let's move on to a different level. We're going to move up to Cedar Rapids. I got to say, if you are getting into watching Twins minor league system games as part of your Twins TV deal, or just minor league MILB TV, check out the Colonels, man. They're so fun. Their offense is absolutely dominant. They have some super fun arms. Unfortunately, Charlie Soto is on the shelf at the moment with a forearm strain, but it's a really fun collection of Twins talent, especially on the hitting side. So I'm curious, Jeremy, who you got for guys off to a great start at Cedar Rapids?
So the first name, and I picked a couple here. One probably less surprising, but his stats aren't pulling up for me. The second one, Jose Olivares, who in 13 2/3 innings, 4 starts, has a whip under 1, an opposing batting average of 116, struck out 20, issued 8 walks, and has allowed 1 earned run and 5 hits. So just a really, really small sample size, a little bit older, 22, but making his debut at Cedar Rapids after splitting between Complex League, rookie ball, and pitching 46 innings for Fort Myers last year. So just for me, good to see. That's strictly numbers, right? And that's results based, and you don't always want to go down that path. But when you see good numbers like that, it's at least something to keep an eye on. The other name that's probably not surprising at all that I'm going to say is Billy Amick. Still doesn't have any home runs,
So bizarre, huh?
which is nuts. But has a 922 OPS, so 6 doubles, 1 triple, 12 runs batted in. Has struck out 26 times to only 15 walks. But I do think that when you're hitting like he's hitting, not necessarily the ball over the fence, but this league is not hard for him. So
Yep.
I would expect that maybe he spends the whole year there. I don't know that he necessarily should.
I don't think so.
And is he a third baseman? Is he a first baseman? We'll figure all that out later. Maybe he's a corner outfielder, but has done everything that I've expected him to do, aside from hitting a bunch of bombs. But I feel like he'll come here soon.
That's coming. Unfortunately, he is also on the IL. Shout out to Cody Schoenman too, also, who wrote an article at Twins Daily, basically hypothesizing whether Billy Amick would be a good fit, like very, very long term as a Twins future first baseman. And everyone just yelled at him in the comments.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those where people come to say what they want to say about things and didn't really pay close attention to the good work that was written. But yeah, those are great choices. Olivares is super interesting too. His fastball's in the upper 90s as well, so it's like high octane stuff. He's going to be a fun one to track in the second half of the year. I also went with a more famous hitter just because I feel like we just have not talked about him. So I picked out 2 guys, both offensive players. Kalen Culpepper, we have not really talked about all year because he missed some time at the beginning of the year with various injuries coming out of spring training. He was, of course, the Twins' 2024 first-round pick at 21st overall. He got off to that great start last year in 2024 at Fort Myers, got bumped up, and then just kind of wore down at the end of the season. He's off to a nice start for Cedar Rapids. Just 16 games. He's lagging behind other folks a little bit due to that missed time. But he's hitting 333, 400, 508. That's good for a 155 WRC plus. Got a couple of home runs, 4 stolen bases, walking 10% of the time, striking out just 11% of the time, and playing slick defense at shortstop. That is exactly what I was hoping to see from Kalen Culpepper at high A. That just feels like whoever is most healthy out of Amick, and it's not going to be Amick now because he's on the IL. Whoever's most healthy out of Amick, DeBarge, and Culpepper is going to Double-A in the next 2 months, in my opinion.
And special shout out to Kyle DeBarge, who is really, really good at Cedar Rapids. So 284, 402, 477 for 879 OPS. Leads the team with 4 home runs. Also 16 for 16 stolen bases and has 22 walks and only 20 strikeouts. So he's probably the best of the lot right now.
Yep.
And someone that I think we're both excited about when the Twins selected him. So special shout out to him.
100%.
Great.
He's off to a great start. One other guy I want to call out at Cedar Rapids is Nate Baez. He is a catcher first base prospect. Boy, could the Twins use a catching prospect who we feel good about their catching, who just continues to be strong. Nate Baez was a 2022 draftee out of Arizona State, 12th rounder. Here's what he's put together. After a solid sample at high A last year, in which he managed a 118 WRC plus, this year he's really put it together even more impressively. He's hitting 356, 493, 508. That's good for a 189 WRC plus, walking 17% of the time, striking out just 10% of the time. Couple of home runs in there. He is just crushing the ball. Nate Baez, I believe he is 23 years old, so a touch old for the level, but he's going to be another one who's pushing for a change of scenery to Wichita at some point if he keeps that up. How about, Jeremy, guys who you have question marks or kind of wonderings about from their first 6 weeks at Cedar Rapids?
Yeah, Brandon Winokur for me. Sub 200 batting average, has drawn 15 walks, but his on base is 310, which is lower than any of their other regulars. he's had more at bats than anybody on the team. So it's not that he's doing this with limited opportunities; he's doing it with all the opportunities. And the calling card with Winokur, I think we assumed would be his power. Like with Amick, who's hit 0 home runs, we know it's there. With Winokur, he's got 1, and so we saw more of that last year. Obviously, he struck out 32 times so far, which leads the team. There's just a lot of stuff that I think we knew there were holes. We didn't know how big and when they would show up. But ultimately, I think there's some questions that certainly need to be answered. The fact that he's very available, he's played 27 games so far this year, you got to like to see. But I think we'd all hope for there to be some more success with the bat.
Yeah, and I think like maybe I'm fitting the narrative to the reality, but I think that I expected this to be a tough transition for Winokur. He spent the whole of 2024 at low A, really heated up towards the end of the year, but this is a big step up. He has done a better job of getting on base since we flipped from April to May. 297 OBP in April, 357 so far in May. That's an improvement. You're absolutely right about the power. From what I've seen of Winokur in Cedar Rapids, he's only getting breaking pitches. It is like very much the Trevor Larnach, I'm not throwing you a fastball. You're going to have to prove to me that you can either hit spin, lay off spin and off speed stuff, but he's really not getting much in the way of fastballs. And so that's the first like major adjustment in professional baseball. And we're going to learn a lot about, what his upside looks like and how he's able to deal with it. I would think, and you can disagree or correct me if you think I'm off base here. I would guess that Winokur will just get the whole year to figure it out at Cedar Rapids. I think he's 20 or turning 20 this year. So no rush. Let him figure it out and see if he can kind of work around some of the struggles.
Yep, for sure.
A guy I want to touch on who I think has been a little disappointing so far at Cedar Rapids is Jaime Ferrer. He is a guy I was really excited about coming into the season, had a super productive year at Florida State, was the Twins' 4th rounder in 2024, and it's just really struggling with the bat. 18 games so far, a WRC plus of -12. It's a 097, 174, 113 line. He split time between catcher and the outfield. But this guy has a track record of hitting everywhere he's gone. He put up a 123 WRC plus at Fort Myers last year, and it's leading me to wonder if there's something else going on here, whether that is injury related, because I would expect a step up in competition to be a challenge, but maybe not him falling off the face of the earth to the extent that he has so far in 2025. So he's a guy I'm going to be tracking closely as we move into May and June here, hoping he can turn it around. Why don't we move on to Wichita? Who's a player that's off to a great start, Jeremy? I feel like you're trolling me with this one, dude.
So it's a guy, like, just looking at the roster, right? And for me, it was a surprise. And so that's why I had to bring it up, because I've been down on this guy literally since the day they drafted him. Have wrote him off as a non-prospect every opportunity that I've got. So I just wanted to point out that Aaron Sabato is having the best season that he's had, like, as a professional. Once he got drafted, he's literally never. He OPS'd a little at high A in 100 at bats, over 1,000 5 years ago. Okay. Right now at Wichita, as a 26-year-old, which is not great, his OPS is 938, and he's struck out 13 times but walked 8. He usually is more like 2 to 1. Hasn't hit for a ton of power, but at least I think has earned himself the right to make it through the year, right? After 2024, where he was awful,
Yep.
If he would have been cut this offseason, it wouldn't have shocked me. But the fact that he came back and is at least holding his own is surprising. It's not that he's the best player on the team. It's not that he's the best prospect on this team, but the fact that he's holding his own is surprising to me. And if he continues this, seeing him at St. Paul would not shock me.
You know what I need? You know what I need in my life? Aaron Sabato and Carson McCusker hitting back to back in the Saints lineup, just for the big dude all or nothing home run energy. I feel like that would be fun.
Yep. No. So yeah, I'm just trying to give him the kudos that he deserves after 6 years of me wondering the heck the Twins are going with that big.
That's very big of you, Jeremy. A couple of candidates. I gotta say, I'm a little pleasantly surprised by Wichita. I think when we did our preseason preview, and in general, the Twins minor league affiliates are performing very well. As of Monday, 7th best cumulative record for their affiliates in baseball, which is pretty solid. I think we talked about, Jeremy, like Wichita's maybe being the least exciting in terms of just like raw talent of the rosters. Walker Jenkins has played a couple of games. He's not going to be playing till at least the end of May. How about one of the reasons they've been so successful? I was torn between Rubel Cespedes and Kyler Fedko. I went Kyler Fedko because I think this is more of a surprise. 25-year-old, 12th round draftee from 2021 out of the University of Connecticut, repeater of AA. Just to put this in context, in AA last year, he had an 85 WRC plus. He hit 227, 327, 319 in 76 games. So a good long sample size. He is crushing the ball in 2025. Through his first 23 games, hitting 293, 436, 560, 5 home runs, walking close to 20% of the time and striking out 23.4%. Good for a 176 WRC plus. He has a high BABIP. It's 354, but it's not so crazy high that it accounts for all of this. So I'm super duper impressed with Kyler Fedko and his start. That is, I think, one of the most fun, pleasant surprises, in my opinion, in the entire system. One thing I'll note from a couple of our picks of guys who are doing well, this applies to Jay Thomason, this applies to Kyler Fedko, and this absolutely applies to Carson McCusker, should we cover him when we get to St. Paul. All of those guys are swinging less by about 10% than their previous season. So what it's making me hypothesize and wonder about is the Twins seem to be able to dial back the aggressiveness of some of these guys a little bit, and it's leading to them getting better pitches to hit and better pitches to do damage on. So Kyler Fedko, impressive. How about your AA guy who you're wondering about?
So we talked last year, I feel like, quite a bit about Pearson Ole and Jalen Nolan, who as starters were okay. We thought if they ever transitioned to being relievers, that might fast track them. Ole has made 2 starts, or made 1 start, appeared 2 other times, and has been great. But
former guest of the show, Pearson Ole.
That's true. Jalen Nolan has made 8 appearances and pitched 10 2/3 of innings total. 8 earned runs, a whip of nearly 1.7, opposing batting average of 250. He struck out 15, which, I think that works out to what, a K9 of 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
Has 8 walks, which is not great, and just hasn't had the results that I think we would have hoped to see as a full-time reliever here in AA.
Yep. Certainly the swing and miss appears to be there with Nolan, but the strike throwing has always been the thing and the wondering. Plenty of time for him to turn around. Dude, I had not looked at Pearson Ole's numbers through his first couple of appearances at Double-A. Very, very impressive.
Mhm.
I'm going to go with a pick that I wondered about, I think, a little bit at the time, if I'm remembering back. And this is their 5th round pick from 2022. Ben Ross out of Notre Dame College, 5th round pick, 144th overall. He is repeating Double-A, and he's an excellent athlete, like super defensively versatile. I'm just wondering if this is the level at which the hitting is kind of petering out, right? So as a 23-year-old last year at Double-A, he played 123 games, basically a full season. 212, 284, 341, good for 74 WRC plus. This year through 27 games, 186, 307, 299, good for 76 WRC plus. He is walking more and striking out a little bit less, but it just seems like the quality of contact maybe isn't there for success at this level, at least yet. And Ben Ross, I know he was a 8th round pick for $220,000. But yeah, I have questions about whether he's going to be able to hit at high A or for much longer for the Twins. Okay, let's move on to St. Paul. Guy who's off to a hot start. I wonder who that could be. What you got, Jeremy?
So, if you recall, a couple months ago, I misread a question and thought I was being asked what non-top 30 prospect could make a difference for the Twins.
Oh, God.
And I went with Carson McCusker. And that wasn't actually the question, but it was the answer to my made-up question.
An opportunity for you to be smug. How annoying.
Well, yeah, so I had to – I feel like you left that one. I feel like you put that one on the tee for me. In 29 games, has 9 home runs, 7 doubles. He does strike out way more than I'm comfortable with and walks way less than I'm comfortable with. 35 strikeouts, 9 walks in 29 games. Has an OPS of 1065, is slugging 667. Gets on base still about 40% of the time at AAA, which is impressive.
Yeah.
And has a batting average of 333 and hits the ever living snot out of the ball.
Yeah, he does, dude.
Which is super fun. And I think, if needed, could be a right-handed bat in the mix for the Twins. I do think that's a real thing. He's 6'8", he's 250, he's almost 27. There are questions, there are holes, there are problems. But one of the biggest problems is when that ball is coming at you at that rate and you're in the outfield, you need to protect yourself.
Dude, max EV of 114.7. I mean, that is easily plus in-game power, if not a little bit more. Hard hit rate of 60%. And then coming back to that trend that we noted from some of these guys and their improvements, if I can find it, swing percentage in Double-A in 2024, which is where he spent most of his season, 47%. Swing percentage so far in AAA in 2025 is 39.6%. So dialing back the aggressiveness, hunting, getting pitches that you want to hit. He has been unbelievably fun. Get them at a first baseman.
Exactly. Hasn't taken a single rep there.
So let's play this out for a second. Do you not think it makes sense? Okay, so Ty France, I think, has been solid, right? Like, he's performed well. He's
better than expected.
Decent with the bat, at least passable defensively, solid average, whatever. If we're thinking about first base beyond this year, and maybe they're just going to go, veteran free agent to veteran free agent, why not give 6'8", lighthouse-sized target, who's also a right-handed hitter, Carson McCusker, some reps at third base at St. Paul? Who is that hurting? I'm trying to understand what is the logic of not doing that, I guess. Because if you're going to say that he's not a good defensive outfielder, that's fine.
Right.
The Twins are just fine in the outfield between Wallner and Buxton, and some of their really high-end prospects are going to fit in there at some point. That's fine. but surely McCusker makes a little more sense at first base. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, unless someone is seeing him try this and it's
Sure.
just obviously not the right fit, and that could be right 6'8", like this is, but it's reflexes, it's movement, it's a lot of stuff that maybe at this point in time at 27, almost 27, you're not teaching an old dog new tricks. But I mean, it's obvious that with the dimensions that he brings and the profile that he has, it would just make sense. And I feel like there must be an obvious reason that we just don't know about, and that would be it. But yeah, I do like the idea. I gotta think, unless I'm missing somebody, he's got to be the next in line or close to the next in line if there's a need in the outfield, right?
It's got to be close. Got to be close, especially given that Austin Martin just went down with a re-aggravation of the hamstring. Per Theo, believe Theo broke that news, and posted video from friend Tom Froming.
Yeah, it was tragic to see in person, but I mean, gets off the IL, first at bat of the game, about to score at home, and then boom. Yeah, very frustrating stuff for him there. But with that happening, I think if they are willing to make a 60-day IL move for Luke Keeschel, that's how you add him onto the 40-man spot. Otherwise, the only other thing I could think of is them DFAing Cody Clemens, but I don't see them doing that in the next week or two. So I think if you want to do that, you got to bite the Band-Aid and put Keeschel on the 60-day, because we know he's not going to be back before the All-Star break, and then you option down Deshaun Kersey Jr. because he's not doing well at the plate. Again, this could all still be weeks away, but that is the most logical route for him to get there.
I'm sorry, you lost me on bite the Band-Aid. Is that an actual thing?
Yeah, I just made it up right now.
Okay.
Bite the bullet.
Like,
I hyphened up together two different sayings. Rip off the Band-Aid, bite the bullet. But you know what? We're trying something different here tonight.
We're going to bite the Band-Aid.
I just saw your face, Jeremy, just like get excruciatingly confused. And I also like that Theo's benevolent voice just kind of appears from nowhere. Every now and again.
I looked at you and I'm like, do kids say that? Is this the thing that kids say? Kids say things nowadays, and I don't understand.
I think
kids are younger than me, so you guys would know.
I think we should move to make Bite the Band-Aid a thing. That's the name of the episode right there. But Bite the Band-Aid, Twins minor league review.
Should I change that officially? And I do think my oldest child is closer in age to Theo than Theo is to me. So
that's probably true.
Yeah.
Carson McCusker, get him a first base mitt, someone. One other guy, I want to give some shine to Jefferson Morales. I love Jefferson Morales. He just hits everywhere he goes. Check this out. This is his last few stops on the minor league baseball tour. 2023 in high A, 136 WRC plus, 2024 in double A, 119, 2024 in a very short sample in triple A, 163. Now through 29 games in 2025, a 125 WRC plus, walks 11% of the time, strikes out just 15%, really controls his plate appearances well as hitting 287, 364, 489, 4 home runs, a couple of stolen bases. I love this guy. This is one of the type of prospects who's such a tweener in terms of like where do they fit on a roster that he might never see an opportunity. I also saw him hit a couple of home runs live in spring training. He's just been really, really solid for a Saints offense in which certain superstar prospects haven't quite gotten going yet, who shall remain nameless for the next couple of minutes. But Jefferson Morales has been super duper impressed. He's a little bit of a late bloomer too, 26 years old in 2025, but he's been really fun to watch. Jeremy, you got anyone you're wondering about in AAA?
Yeah, so I think I didn't put this in earlier, but Daigo Cartaya, who was a buy low guy from the Dodgers, former top 100 prospect, I think the most likely outcome was that he wasn't going to be the answer for the Twins. But I think that there was some hope that maybe he could turn things around and enter the catcher conversation, right? After Vasquez leaves, who's going to be the second catcher?
Yep.
And I think there was maybe not like optimistic hope, but some hope that it could be him. In 10 games, he was 2 for 32, struck out 23 times,
Rough.
walked 6 times. His OPS is 367, which I think Theo could probably do.
I never hit a home run in my
Doesn't
little league
matter.
career.
Doesn't matter.
So
I'm not sure you'd necessarily need to swing to have an OPS of 367.
I could draw a few walks still.
That's all we need, right?
There you go.
And so I just he's on the developmental list. I don't know how long he lasts. He's still in the 40-man. He's not the answer, and I think that's obvious. So the question that I have is, how long does he last?
Well, he's now on the developmental list, I believe, right?
He is,
Okay.
but he's also taking up a 40-man spot, right?
Hmm.
Still.
No, he was removed from the 40-man. They outrighted him a week or two ago.
Okay, good. So the question was, how long is he going to last? That answered with he hasn't. And how long does he last in the organization in general? Like Camargo is just a better option.
And Patrick Winkle.
And probably guys, other guys too. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing because I think, again, I don't know if it was real optimism or just, blind hope, but that's just not the answer for the Twins.
Definitely a bummer. That's kind of a slam dunk one. Mine is Emmanuel Rodriguez. I felt like I had to take personal responsibility for this one. I'm not admitting defeat, Jeremy. He's just off to a slow start. He is only 22. But I do want to, I think there's some interesting things going on here. So he's had a little re-aggravation of some of the thumb stuff. So far, he's hitting 233, 385 on base, still very healthy. 274 slug is what's fascinating. So he's striking out 33% of the time. That's a little bit higher than last year. Walking 19.8% of the time. That's a little bit less. And if we dig into the kind of under the hood stuff here, max EV so far this season of 114. That is great. No issues, no concerns there. What I'm interested in is he is making, first of all, his chase rate is up quite a bit. He chased 9% of the time at AAA last year. That was a tiny sample, mind you. It's 20% this year, which is not high, but it's high for him. The other thing that I'm going to note that I think is interesting is his contact percentage on pitches outside of the strike zone last year was 14.3%. This year it's 36.6%, which is a massive increase. That's more than double. So my hypothesis is chasing more, making more contact with pitches out of the zone, and that contact is of generally poor quality, leading to the low slug. His isolated power is 0.41. That is absurdly bad for someone with his level of power. He has 3 doubles, 0 home runs in his first 21 games. So I do think there is some kind of approach, swing decisions, bat to ball things that he's working through. I would love other folks to weigh in on that hypothesis, but it's undeniable that Erod's been a little bit disappointing, especially in this early part of the season where the big league roster has been dealing with a rash of injuries. Jeremy, your opportunity to say I told you so and or double down on your Emmanuel Rodriguez is Oswaldo Arcia line in theory, if you so choose.
Well, Oswaldo Arcia at least had 2 workable thumbs. And I'm not sure Rodriguez ever will. And that's a bummer because if you got a thumb that's just bad all the time, you're kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to see him at least get an opportunity while healthy, like extended healthy run, because when he came back a week ago and he's struck out 6 times in those games, and got 2 singles and a caught stealing, and just he's walked 6 times as well. But it's not good, and it's just a bummer because is the talent there? Certainly. But is the light starting to flicker a little bit on him?
No. Too early for that. Too early for that, dude. He's played how many games total in AAA? As a 22-year-old, 21-year-old last year. Sorry, 7 games last year, 21 games this year. He's played 28 games at AAA, and we're saying the light is starting to flicker on his prospect status.
I didn't say it burned out.
Not having that.
I didn't say it burned out. It hasn't burned out. I'm just worried. I'm worried that he's Oswaldo RC all over again.
I think worried is fair, but let's revisit it in July. Okay, a couple of listener questions. Before we do that, one thing I wanted to hit in the news and notes that we didn't, and we should have, just real quick. We have talked quite a bit on the show about Dason Hill, named to Baseball America's updated top 100 prospects this morning at number 85 overall, joining Zebby Matthews, Luke Keeschel, Emmanuel Rodriguez, and Walker Jenkins, 5 of the top 100, including Keeschel, Erod, and Jenkins, all sitting inside the top 35. So just wanted to call out that celebration of Dason Hill.
Zebby's 48, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
So 4 in the top 50.
Yep.
So,
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Also, because a gazillion people have asked, Dason Hill was removed from his last start after 1.2 innings. That was due to back tightness. Nothing arm, elbow, shoulder, etc. related. Next start is TBD. I heard has not been ruled out that he might pitch this weekend. So fingers crossed he's back on the mound sooner than later. Does not sound like it's anything too serious.
So he's an 18, 19-year-old with the back of a 40-year-old man.
Well, he's a tall guy. He's 6'5".
There's a lot of back.
A lot of back. All right, listener questions. I don't know whether Matthew Trueblood's question needs to be read, but Jeremy, you like to take these kind of ridiculous hypotheticals on. We'll touch on these 3 prospects quick for folks who don't know. So he says Ivan Breathower, Carson McCusker, and Ernesto Martinez Jr. Those are just like the most massive prospects from the Cubs, Twins, and Brewers organizations, basically. I think Breathower is like 6'6", 250. McCusker is 6'8", 250. And Ernesto Martinez is also like 6'5", 6'6". Each have to flip a giant tire down an entire football field, then cook a perfect Western omelet. Then each has to write a 1,000-word essay on the experience. Who wins the triathlon when the plates are clean and the dust has settled? Do you want some... He's like so sick of you, Trueblood. Do you want some thinking time, Jeremy? And shall we knock out the other question first and leave that as a let's come back to it? Or you can pitch it to next week, or you can tell Matthew Trueblood to F off if you so prefer.
No, I want to tackle this. Okay, and I'll tell you why I want to tackle this, because I feel like there's the hardest part about this. I mean, I feel like all 3 of them are going to be able to flip that giant tire,
Okay.
right? Cooking omelets is not super easy, right? And it's got to be perfect. And so Breathwell is 22, and Martinez is...
He's older, right? 20, 25, 26?
Born in 99. But then McCusker is older yet, right? I feel like there's a little bit more life experience there. I also feel like he went to Oklahoma State University, which just strikes me as more of an academic place than UC Santa Barbara, right?
You are out of your mind. No way. Oklahoma State?
Well,
I don't think so, dude.
Anything that starts with UC that isn't like Cal or Stanford.
UC Santa Barbara is a good school.
Strikes me as a place that you go there to surf and party and...
No, I think you're off base with that. I think Oklahoma State is an academically poor school. No offense to anyone who went there. And UC Santa Barbara is an academically solid school. Not to mention, are we taking into account transfers? Because I don't think Carson McCusker played at the same school or no, it was Breathawater transferred to Santa Barbara from somewhere else.
Okay, so where did he transfer from? Because I feel like this is a big deal.
I feel like it's I feel like it's one of the Arizona schools, but
also parties.
That's a party. That's for sure a party school.
Okay, so AI tells me that your suspicions were true. UC Santa Barbara.
Not using AI.
Hey, it's the quickest thing. UC Santa Barbara generally boasts a stronger academic reputation, is ranked higher nationally compared to Oklahoma State University.
Thank you.
Okay. UCSB excels in fields like engineering, physical sciences, and research impact.
But he was only there for like a year. Okay, go on. Keep going.
Well, where else was he? Because this is important.
This is not great. I fear that this is not great podcasting content. Watching us do Google searches on Ivan Breathawater's previous schools. He went to.
It's not. Well, you know what, Theo? Tell us where it is.
He went to Arizona. Pardon me. He went to Arizona State first.
Okay.
So Arizona State, then UC Santa Barbara, and I feel like Arizona State is. I feel like this is thick in the plot because
they're comparable.
Are they?
Arizona State and Oklahoma State? Yeah, Arizona State's strengths are probably more geared towards being able to write a 1,000-word essay on anything. So we're gonna give Breathawater the nod on this.
You're just discounting Ernesto Martinez Jr. altogether because we can't speak to what his education was like in Cuba. Is that what you're telling me?
Right. But I also feel like the omelet, McCusker is going to be better. Right?
Why? Why is McCusker?
He's older, life experience. Cooking is a life experience thing. And so I'm a better cook at 41 than I was at 22. Like what did I do well at 22?
Jamie? I shudder to think what your cooking was like at 22. Shudder.
But just, I mean, in general.
What did you do well at 22? Right. Slept. Made poor choices.
That's probably true. I mean, I had a kid at 22 and she turned out to be great. Anyway, that we put enough thought into that to say I feel like Breathawater would be the favorite anyway.
Okay, that's how you're handicapping it. Is Breathawater followed by McCusker, followed by Ernesto Martinez?
Yes.
Okay. We will wait for a response from True Blood. We'll have to get him on here soon and we can have this conversation in person. Okay, one last quick question, which I thought was fun and interesting, and I'm going to adjust it slightly. So apologies, because I forgot to take a note of the handle. This was someone on Blue Sky who thoughtfully sent us this question. If the Twins had to use a minor league field for a year, like the A's, which field would you pick? Now, we're going to say that you don't have to choose a field based on like geographical proximity, because the obvious answer, right, is like CHS. And I think both for the A's and the Rays, who are both in minor league fields, there have been some logistical operational hoops the organizations had to jump through to get those fields into major league ready shape. So we're going to remove that and say you do not have to pick the St. Paul Saints. Are there any favorite minor league stadiums that you have been to that you think would be fun for a year for the Twins? What you got?
When the Twins had Pensacola as an affiliate,
I knew you were going to say that.
Loved the location. I actually went down there just to visit the stadium because it sits like in the ocean and the Gulf, which is super cool. I don't know what it holds for a capacity. I feel like it's not enough. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Saints makes sense. Probably the spring training facility makes the most sense from just what they have for facilities. Mm-hmm. If it got to be like any stadium just for fun, pictures of the Appalachian State.
Oh yeah,
stadium, but that only holds 1,000 people.
Yep.
Which might not be a problem for the Twins this year. But in a normal year, that wouldn't work. So
how dare you?
The other thing that I was thinking, like, could we just bring back the Metrodome just for a minute? and just play at the Metrodome, because for all the warts that it had, it did have some things that were cool, right? The baggy
Yep.
was cool. Getting sucked out of the dome at the end, super cool. And 0 rain delays.
Yep.
Cool. Dollar dog nights, those dogs were not healthy, and you don't know what was living in the corners. But I mean, the obvious and right answer would be St. Paul, but probably the Lee County Sports Complex would just. I would guess the capacities are probably similar, but if we could do a week of Twins baseball followed by a week of Saints baseball followed by a week of Twins baseball, who's complaining about that? I don't think anybody.
Sounds great. I'll throw one more in the mix. This is going to sound weird and random. Fifth Third Field in Toledo, Ohio was the first ever minor league stadium I went to. It's the AAA stadium of the Detroit Tigers. Beautiful. Really nice, new-ish, modern stadium. Great setup. A nice kind of I like a downtown cityscape view from a ballpark. One of the reasons I think Target Field is so cool. Toledo Mud Hen Stadium is wonderful. I highly recommend if you're over there, that you should check it out. That'd be another good one.
You've been there? Like,
I have been there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a cool one. Is there a minor league ballpark in Allentown? I feel like
there is the minor league. Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs is the AAA affiliate of the Philadelphia Phillies. Coca-Cola Field, it is unimaginatively named, but is soon to be home to Andrew Painter. So it'll be worth visiting. It's okay.
Yeah, that's
fine.
That's actually not. That's a pretty nice looking minor league field.
It's all right.
You just don't ever want to talk about Allentown.
All right. That's enough rambling for today. We will be back sometime in the next week, TBD on the Wolf schedule, but we will be back to dig into a full mock draft. And I can commit to one thing, which is we will cover at least 2 Twins picks. So we're going at least 36 deep. So who knows? Wolves could be 3-1 up by then. Twins might be 500. Things are looking up. Thank you guys for checking out the show. We'll see you next time.